Multiple quarterbacks benched in week 7 in the NFL, plus a rash of injuries. And as always on Tuesdays, your Yike of the Week. This is the Locked On NFL podcast.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Tuesday on the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am one of your regular Tuesday hosts, Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL. Subbing in for Ross Jackson today, we got David Harrison at DHarrison82. I do Locked On Vikings. David does Locked On Bucks and Locked On Commanders. Very interesting time to be covering those two teams, but
hey, one of them's on a 2-game win streak, and it's not the one you would think.
And it's not the one you would have thought. But even more interesting times in Indianapolis, where Matt Ryan is benched. They traded for him. They're paying him a pretty penny too. Took him away from the Falcons. What a quick downfall. Sam Ehlinger is going to finish out the season for the Colts. Colts at 3-3-1. This is not like the Panthers, who are having a fire sale, packing it in, saying, all right, we're embracing the rebuild. Let's start piling assets. The Colts, even though, losing to the Titans in this last weekend really hurts, but they're not out of it, right? Like, they're still looking at wild card spots and stuff. Like, this is genuinely we think this is the best thing for our franchise moves. What do you make of this, David?
I think it's just, so what I called it on Locked On Commanders, because funny enough, the Commanders and Colts play this weekend. So we are talking about this because this directly impacts that matchup. I call this Jerry Jones syndrome. And I think Jim Irsay is way too involved in what's going on the football side of things. You know, he pushed Carson Wentz out, and look, I'm not going to sit here and say that Carson Wentz should have been like the next Peyton Manning for the Indianapolis Colts or anything. But that decision, from just the collection of stories that have been going around, was a personal decision, not a football decision. So they pushed Carson Wentz out, who nearly got them to the playoffs. And a lot of people want to remember him getting COVID prior to one of their losses at the end of the season, but they don't remember the game where he led their team to a victory when 5 of their starters were off the field because of COVID. So, you know, there's a lot of revisionist history kind of going on with that whole story. And now you have a situation where Jim Irsay is like, oh, Matt Ryan's the greatest leader since Peyton Manning, but we're going to bench him anyway. So you've got a leader, or you got an owner that basically just can't decide which side of the coin he wants to sit on. One quarterback he runs out of town for personal reasons. The other one now he sits for football reasons, but loves him personally. Matt Ryan, worse in the NFL in interceptions, worse in the NFL in fumbles, tied for being the sacked the most of all quarterbacks in the National Football League. So there are plenty of football reasons to make this move. But the whole line of, we want to give Sam the rest of the season to show us if he can be our future, is a crock. They're tanking. They're tanking as much as an NFL team can tank. And I'm not saying that they're going to command that they go lose or anything like that. You can't ask football players to go out there and take the punishment they do. I don't think you could realistically tell football players to go get, pummeled the way that they do on a weekly basis and lose on purpose. But putting in a second-year, 6th-round draft pick quarterback is about as close as you're coming to tanking in the National Football League. I think they see the Bills, they see the Chiefs, they even see some of these other teams that haven't performed as well, but could be better than they are, like the Raiders and the Chargers. And they're just like, you know what? It's not our year. Let's go get a CJ Stroud or whoever we decide to draft with our really high draft pick and get Sam Ehlinger some experience. I don't buy it at all. And you know what? We'll see, because Jonathan Taylor has been having some injury issues. So if that injury magically gets worse this week and he's inactive against the Commanders this weekend, then you're not going to tell me they're not doing anything but tanking this season.
That's so interesting in that division. I mean, that is a 2-team division, and the other team in it has Ryan Tannehill. And I know you just lost to him, and that makes it a lot harder, but it's a long season. To me, this feels like Jim Irsay being real sick of this pattern the Colts have been in ever since they got rid of Luck, or ever since Luck retired, of just grabbing some new rental, be it Phillip Rivers or Wentz, now Matt Ryan, and just sort of trying to paper things over with a 1-year deal. Chris Ballard, I think he's built a pretty good roster over there, but he's bungled quarterback so hard. I think his seat is just like white hot right now. And I would not be shocked to see the Colts clear everything out at the end of the season, although I don't think that would be very fair to Frank Reich.
No,
However,
not at all.
we have another benching situation to talk about
Yeah.
as well. As we are recording this, Monday Night Football has just wrapped up. The Bears absolutely smacked the New England Patriots in New England in prime time. It's kind of a grim moment in New England. And in the middle of that game, after a particularly bad interception in the first quarter, I think, Mac Jones gets the hook for Bailey
Yeah.
Zappi. There was a lot of coyness throughout the week. Bill Belichick, was going to be. There was reporting, there were leaks, but they tried to be coy about, is Mac Jones going to be healthy enough to start or not? And then he did. Mac Jones started. He did not get very far. Bailey Zappi comes in, throws a touchdown on a busted coverage, and then I think he threw 2 picks over the course of the night.
Yeah.
So also a rough outing there. Feels like a grim moment in New England, and both of these franchises, Patriots and Colts, they're supposed to kind of be more or less where they were angling to go. I mean, they're not in rebuilds. Those quote unquote rebuilding seasons already happened. They're supposed to have built to something, and they're benching quarterbacks, and they're having catastrophic. They're both 3-win teams here in late October.
Yeah.
This is a real rough time. And I mean, look, we've all decried the end of the Patriots plenty of times before, but I don't see what there is on that team right now to get me excited about the short-term or long-term future at all.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem with going after a young quarterback too soon. You know what I mean? And I mean, the Colts kind of had the opposite problem. Although I don't know, man, I still, again, Carson's never going to be a Peyton or Andrew Luck, but I have this assertion inside of me that if they give Frank Wright another year with Carson, he comes in this year and they use some of that draft capital to help him out, that they're probably in a better situation than they are right now currently.
Man,
And so is Carson probably.
that'd be something.
For the Patriots, I mean, look, you bring Mac Jones in, who's his number one weapon? Devontae Parker? Maybe Hunter Henry right now. I mean, he's not exactly, spoiled with riches, and neither is Justin Fields, and that's kind of been the story. But even Darnell Mooney is the number one receiver in New England right now, if you put him on that roster, as far as I'm concerned. They don't have a world beater defense on the other side of the ball like Tom Brady did when he took over for an injured Drew Bledsoe. So I mean, it's really hard, when you're trying to build an offense. First thing, obviously, you got to be strong up front in the trenches. But then I love listening to Bucky Brooks on NFL media always talk about, you got the passer, the playmakers, and the pass protection. They have, I mean, not terrible pass protection, right, but not the best necessarily in the NFL. You've got an inexperienced passer, and you have no playmakers. That's the way I look at what the New England Patriots have right now. But then you're going to go through and you're going to take a guy that you spent a first-round draft pick on, and you're going to bench him at the first sign of, maybe this one over here is shinier than the other one. Maybe we can reincarnate the Tom Brady situation. Like, it's just, to me, it's ridiculous, the management of young egos. And I know a lot of people will say, well, this is the NFL, they need to toughen up. Every human being, I don't care who you are, 30 years on the job, you get pulled for the young guy, even for a week, and your company starts showering him with praise after everything you've done for them. You're going to have your ego get bruised, and it's going to stunt your development moving forward. And so, I mean, now they're kind of stuck in this situation where they're going to go week to week having to say who their starting quarterback is.
Yes, they're going to be dealing with this all year now, and they deserve to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Confidence in the NFL is such a fickle thing because you're right. On one hand, it's like, you're in the NFL, man up, deal with it. You got punched in the mouth, go be resilient. But on the other hand, confidence, especially at positions like quarterback, I think corner is this way, I think receiver is this way, where if you don't have the utmost confidence in what you're doing, you can't fake it. Like, you have to make split-second decisions on instinct. And if your confidence is shaken enough, not so shaken you can't get out, nobody's getting stage fright and peeing themselves out there. But if you get shaken enough where you start to second guess things in split second decisions, that can slow you down, that can ruin everything. And I think on the other side of the ball on this Monday night game, we saw somebody overcome that in Justin Fields, who's been dealing with that exact problem of, not trusting himself. And he still had throws where he saw what he thought he wanted to see. He tried to throw it and he didn't trust it, and he pulled it down and he ran. And that's always been the problem with him. But I think a big step forward for Chicago to go on the road, even if the other team in front of you is falling apart, who cares? You go on the road, you kill someone in prime time. that's awesome
Okay.
and good for
Yeah.
you, even on extra rest, and make all the little addendums you want on it. I
It
think
doesn't matter.
this was a good moment for
Yep.
Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still the NFL. It's still hard to win in the National Football League. So you take them however you can get them. And Justin looked good in some very crucial moments. So I think the big difference too, though, is like Justin, like there might be somebody peering over his shoulder for his job, but it's an end of the year situation. And again, Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, basically they're in a situation where they're going out, make one mistake, and that might be your last play as a New England Patriots
Yeah.
quarterback. So I don't know what to tell
Yep.
those two young men about their psyche. They can reach out to some people for some help, and if they do, I have some people that'll be very, very helpful for them. And now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp, who could be those guys, because there's so much going on in life sometimes, Luke, and maybe you
Hmm.
just lost your starting job, or maybe you just took over the starting job and now you didn't do so well, so you don't know if you're going to have it on the next day. Sometimes a problem feels so big that it's hard to move into problem solving mode, but when you solve those problems, it feels great. Whoever takes a hold of that starting job is going to feel amazing. In the meantime, a therapist could potentially be their partner in solving that problem, getting over some of those ego issues, and making it easier to achieve their goals. And all of our listeners and viewers can do the same thing. Sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees, and bringing an outside party into the fold is extremely helpful. Me personally, I've found that I'm likely to be more completely honest with a stranger, which might kind of sound weird than
Oh,
someone
for
who's
sure.
familiar with me, especially a stranger equipped with the tools I need to be successful and get over the hurdles that I need to get over. BetterHelp not only wants to be a part of that solution, but they have convenient, accessible, and affordable professionals ready for you, me, Mac Jones, whoever, over online or over the phone, on or off camera, so you can protect your anonymity a little bit, however you want. And if you don't like your first pairing, you can get a new one with no hassle. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/locked on today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/locked on. And all of you small business owners, as you gear up for fall, you're going to need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders the way that the Chicago Bears did on Monday Night Football. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience. So you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. And did you know every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon NFL.
Moving on with this Locked On NFL podcast, Tuesday edition. Hey, while you're here, maybe after you finish this show, you should make your next listen of the day, the Locked On Sports Today podcast with Peter Bukowski, covering all things in all sports, all the major headlines, daily podcast, just like this one, but for all sports. Go check it out. Let's move on to the other thing of the week, which is it's getting rough out there for injuries. Some really rough ones. The Jets had a string of terrible news coming off of their win over the Broncos. They lose Breece Hall for the season. They lose guard Alijah Vera-Tucker for the season, who has actually been able to play a lot of different positions for them and actually been a really valuable part of that. Really big blow for the Jets, who lose a huge part of their physical front, their run game, and all of that. Just as they are starting to build a little bit of momentum for the first time in it feels like a decade. That there are all kinds of other injuries over the course of the league. I'll pull up some names here in a second, just to give you a sense for it. But do you think, David, that there is a pattern here? Do you think there's something we can
Mhm.
do, or that the league can do, to make it so that this doesn't feel like such a weighty thing every year?
Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be some sort of standardization, to be quite honest with you. Like we have standards for all kind. I mean, we have standards for the color of cleats or gloves that these players can
Hmm.
wear, and those things minimally. I mean, cleats are pretty important, don't get me wrong, and gloves might feel more important than other, but like the color of a guy's gloves aren't going to keep them from breaking a finger or not when, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins is throwing them a bullet, over the middle. But we have standards for what they have to be, what they can be made of, and it's crazy. But week to week, these guys go to a different field. They practice on one field, one type of field that is, and they go to a completely different type of field to play the game per se. And look, some of these fields have some really, really bad reputations. Turf, I mean, just in general, right? I talked to a member of the Washington Commanders after their win over the Green Bay Packers. I'm not going to say the name because technically it was an off the record conversation, even though it's not really anything all that inflammatory, but I just, want to keep it off the record is off the record. But and he told me I don't really like playing on turf, like because I was at because next game is Indianapolis, it's indoors and all that stuff. He's like, I'm just not really a fan of doing that kind of a thing. So that's obviously something that he's not looking forward to, and there's a reason for it. FedEx Field is known. There's like a 10-yard bubble on one end of the field that has been the spot where so many players have had. Like Alex Smith suffered a gruesome injury, like right there. Chase Young tore his ACL. It was like 8 yards away from that exact spot. Like,
Isn't
and
that
again,
where RG3 tore it, or am I wrong?
I think it was RG3 as well. Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 like really bad injuries that happen all like within a general span of each other. It's kind of crazy. And again, I'm not like a field maintenance specialist. I can't tell you like I've been on the FedEx Field surface. I can't tell you why it's good or bad and all these things. But
Right.
there are people who can. And the NFL, I think these players, you invest in them and you talk about safety, they deserve more effort. And they deserve some sort of standardization. I'm not saying you should need like ban turf necessarily or ban whatever, but like just have a minimum. I don't know. There's got to be like some sort of measurement, tensile strength type measurement to a field, like how cushioned it is or how much of an issue it is for joints and all that stuff. And I think the NFL should invest in their players and do some research, put a panel together maybe, and figure out a minimum standard of turf field quality. And how it impacts, I mean, again, these guys tear ACLs, they can literally tell them by standing on basically a scale how much weight of their body mass they're putting on each leg, measure that and turn it into some sort of a field standard.
Right. And you have all sorts of measurements on, especially when it comes to like knee injuries, because one of the things that can really ruin a guy's career when he gets a knee injury is if he comes back, then he'll have more tension put on the other leg as he rehabs because he can't, put as much weight on the other leg. And then the gait changes and your body's not used to that. And then you tear up the other knee, and that's how that kind of thing can compound. But let me give you a modicum of hope, because my Vikings have, this is kind of a story in Minnesota, and it precedes the Vikings. A couple of guys, Tyler Williams and Uriah Myrie as head athletic trainer. These are 2 guys that were doing this in Los Angeles with the Rams for years, and they came over to Minnesota when Kevin O'Connell got hired. They have implemented what has been kind of dubbed as like a sports science thing, which is this really broad term for it. But they have done a lot of various things to try to limit injuries. They went way light on preseason action. I don't know what other teams do. I don't know what the teams you cover do, but the Vikings went really, really light in the preseason, barely ever went full speed. They benched their starters for the entire preseason, instead using a joint practice session with the 49ers as their de facto preseason. And they basically went really, really hard those 2 practices, installed everything all at once, and pretty much let up the gas for the rest of it. And they are currently the 2nd healthiest team in the league, next to just the Philadelphia Eagles, who I think off the dome employ something similar. One example as well, they just played in a scorching game in Miami, heat and humidity, where a lot of injuries can happen when your muscles are cramping because of the heat and tensing up because of the heat. That can lead to muscle tears and strains and stuff. They had like an entire extra hydration regimen. They've utilized the heck out of sleep science when they went to London, and really like took control of their like circadian rhythms and, had this whole thing. And they're doing all this throughout the week. And it's this like huge focus for that, I think it's a Kevin O'Connell thing for one, but it's Tyler Williams and Uriah Myrie. Those guys are, I think, figuring out ways to maybe limit this. And my hope that this does not become something that's just a Vikings advantage forever, right? As much as I would love for the Vikings to have an advantage, I hope this kind of thing spreads throughout the league. And I hope the Vikings can be kind of proof positive that, hey, approaching things in this way, using medical information that we all know and is accepted, stuff like if you're well hydrated, you're just less likely to cramp in the heat, and trying to use it to limit this stuff. I think that can be a really positive step for the league, but I think teams individually have to take it on. And look, some organizations in the league are a little more resistant to new information than others. But I think that's the way it has to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whatever the answer is, all that stuff is way over my head from an intellectual standpoint. Like I'm much better at saying like that guy hit that guy really hard and that made this play happen. But I just again, I just go back to it, right? Because like I guess the Colts have like probably like one of the best turf fields in the National Football League, and that's all great. But you saw players who are like, I just don't like just turf alone is just a problem. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I would
I
almost
think, yeah,
assume,
turf needs to go. It's time.
yeah, because the
There's
scouting
ways to make
combine is
good
there,
grass,
I
like,
would maybe think that the NFL pays a little bit more attention to what the field surface is at Lucas Oil.
for
So I mean,
sure.
maybe that has a benefit to it. But I just like I said, man, there's so many. I mean, we're gonna regulate how much these guys can dance. Come on. Let's do some stuff and talk about the sports science. The
Mhm.
Buccaneers are really big on the sports science. The Commanders, they don't really talk about it as much. I mean, I know that they wear a lot of the same equipment, so I'm sure that they're doing a lot of the same measurements. That might be something I asked Ron Rivera about actually later this week. But
Mm.
I mean, I think personally there needs to be a little bit more study done too, and how much preparation helps in some of these things. And if we're not maybe practicing too light, because like you said, there's been a trend towards less practice and less intense
Right,
practices.
you still have to
And I
acclimate
just
to contact and all
right.
that,
Well,
so
not
there's a
even just contact,
balance.
but I almost wonder these soft tissue injuries. I mean, the Buccaneers get like a handful of hamstring injuries, and hamstring injuries seems like year after year, it's just more and more hamstring injuries and even groin
Mhm.
injuries. And I'm just wondering if maybe the lesser ramp up to the full speed action has something to do with it.
Maybe, yeah. Could be a warm weather thing, it's hotter for the
You know,
Buccaneers for longer, which can be to the Buccaneers' advantage if properly
dehydration and all
utilized,
that. Yeah.
right? Yeah, dehydration and all that. Just like you're gonna get more injuries up in Green Bay in December just because you're playing on
Mm.
hard sod all the time.
Cold muscles or hurt
Um,
muscles, buddy. That's what I've always been told.
mhm. And if you let them get too hot so that they start cramping, same thing, and players will try to play through that kind of stuff and put themselves in danger. But it's all balances and stuff, right? Like there's never going to
Right.
be hard and fast stuff, but those sorts of practices I think can have a good impact on the whole, and I
Yeah.
hope that can start to limit all of this injury stuff. Some of the other names, by the way, since I promised that, DK Metcalf is going to miss a bunch of time. Mike
Mhm.
Williams for the Chargers going to miss a bunch of time. Evan Neal, rookie tackle for the Giants, going to miss a bunch of time. JC Jackson tears his patellar tendon,
Mm.
might be out for the season. That kind of thing has ended careers before. So
Yeah.
those are some of the names that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, nobody, you're never going to find anything or balance or turf or field or whatever that's going to suit everybody. But there is something that can suit everybody, and that is Prize Picks. Our buddies over there, one of my favorite apps on my phone. You pick 2 to 5 players. They're going to be healthy. They're not going to be injured players, and hopefully they stay that way. And you're going to pick whether you think they're going to get more or less than their Prize Picks projection, whether it be passing yards, rushing yards. You can do a combined rushing and receiving yards and all that. That's always a little bit of extra fun. You pick the 2 to 5 players, you pick their more or their less than their projections. And if you win, you can get up to 10 times your money on any of the entries. And then you can take as much time as you want, be super investigative into it, or you can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, book it, let it go, watch the games, enjoy. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch, including obviously the NFL, or they wouldn't be sponsoring this show. Or you got the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, and you've got cricket, the most popular sport in the world, believe it or not. And they offer safe and fast withdrawals, currently operating in over 30 states and in Canada. So download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports in a new way. First time users, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100 with a promo code locked on. If you deposit 100, they give you 100. You deposit 50, they give you 50. That's how it works. Don't forget to use the promo code locked on at sign up for that instant deposit match up to $100 on the Prize Picks app or at prizepicks.com.
Quick update for you, David. As we've been recording this during Bill Belichick's post-game press conference, you
Mm,
turn it on basically right as the game ended.
yeah.
Chad Graff of The Athletic, covers the Patriots, says that Bill Belichick said Mac Jones was not benched after 3 drives, and instead the plan was always to play both quarterbacks. And Mac Jones knew that both quarterbacks would play. So this was not a spur of the moment decision, but it was instead a plan to have Mac Jones play a little, then pull him and have Bailey Zappi go in. That gets a yike from me. And that brings us
Yeah.
to our big yikes of the week. Ross and I have been doing this all season. So we pick a thing that made us say yike. that is not my yike, but I will give it a yike nonetheless. There are yikes to go
deserves
around,
it.
so feel free to bring up multiple. But David, what happened this week that made you say yike?
So this isn't mine either, but I do want to, just because it's perfect. So what deserves a yikes more? Rotating quarterbacks or rotating left guards?
Left guards. Rotating
Yeah.
quarterbacks I can see it in some contexts, like if you have a Taysom
Right.
Hill and you want a package thing. I mean, go
Yes.
back to Pat White in Miami in 2008 when they did their Wildcat year.
Ooh.
Like
Good
there's a
pull.
deep cut, right?
Yes.
Like there's ways you can make that work, and I actually do think that that can be really difficult to prepare for. You just have to be able
Yeah.
to execute it. Rotating offensive line is so much about chemistry, and when I
Right.
say O-line chemistry, I mean O-line splits are so important. You have to line up at the same depth and at the proper width with everybody to the
No.
inch. You got to practice that with somebody a lot, and rotating them
No.
a lot it's like rotating kickers or holders. Like there is this very intricate and delicate precision to it that rotating can destroy, where I don't think I think quarterback is so much more a complex system that there's room for that flexibility.
I agree 100%. Tampa Bay Buccaneers rotated left guards against Carolina Panthers, and that is the
Woof.
plan moving forward as well. So
Hit the Packers for that too. What have they been doing on their O-line all
yeah,
year?
I know they've had some swaps, but I think most of theirs, I thought anyway, the most of their swaps are at least injury related. This is just
Yeah. They have had like they gave like half a game to David Bakhtiari, but they did it like by drive.
right. So
Wild
speaking of the
stuff.
Packers and the Buccaneers, actually, they're involved in my yikes this week, and that is the kings of the NFC not being very kingly, and you got to throw the Los Angeles Rams in there as well. And in preseason, a lot of people said it's Bucks, it's Packers, it's Rams, and it's everybody else. Maybe the Eagles make some quote unquote noise. Me personally, I'm going to call myself out too. I said it's Bucks, it's Rams, then it's Eagles and Packers, and then it's everybody else playing for playoff spots. It's been Eagles and nobody else. Disrespect to the Vikings if when I say that, because they're 5-1, they're sitting there going, "Hey guys, we're right here too. What's going on?" Maybe just a little less exciting in the way that they're doing it, but I mean
The
the quote
Vikings,
unquote
Giants,
kings of
and
the
Jets are all in
NFC.
this weird
Oh yeah,
category
I mean the
together.
Giants. I
Yeah.
mean, look, the Giants. Listen, guys, y'all earned the disrespect. You're gonna have to do it for a whole year before people start showing you that respect. But it
Sure.
is what it is. I mean, look, the kings of the NFC are right. I mean, 3-win teams, 3-4, two of them, 3-3, one of them, and one of the Rams. The only reason they're not 3-4 probably because they didn't play this weekend.
It's like not out of the realm of possibility to see none of those teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, but then I got Jonathan Vilma, on the game broadcast telling Buccaneers fans that your team is still in first place, so you should be happy. And I don't know,
By
3-4, the Tom
tiebreakers, but
Brady
I
team,
want to see the
and
Falcons
all
win that
this.
division so bad. Let's get weird.
I mean, at this point, they almost deserve it more. And I'll tell you, I caught a little bit of flack earlier this year from some Packers fans for saying that the Green Bay Packers were the third best team in the NFC North. I mean, I may not be wrong, Luke.
You may not be wrong. They are
I'm not gonna lie,
currently
I actually
tied.
was being hyperbolic when I said it.
They're
But I
currently
might actually be
tied.
right.
If you watch Peter Bukowski on Twitter too, he's all over this. They're tied with the
Yes.
Bears, and
Yes.
like points per game and a lot of even more advanced like metrics and stuff. They're like blow for blow with the Bears. It is genuinely
Yep.
arguable who has played better so far, the Bears or the Packers.
Nope.
And the Lions also appeared.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take
the
my
Lions,
yike.
they were an exciting story.
They're a very endearing 1-5-1,
Yeah.
or whatever their record is, or 1-5. Yeah,
1-5, yeah.
1-5. I'm mixing them up with the Texans. I want to apologize for that. My yike goes to the AFC. Kenny Pickett
Oh,
got a hard fought game against a pretty good Miami Dolphins defense
oh.
in not great conditions in prime time. It started raining. It's foggy anyways. Your hands all slippery and stuff. And he was driving, man. That looked like it could have been a legacy moment. Down 10-16, could have gone down the field, scored, won by a point. And he throws the most boneheaded interception.
Yeah.
I mean, just straight up didn't see a guy. He was rolling out of the pocket, got so excited to make a move, just straight up didn't see Noah Igbenogany. And Igbenogany, who's having a low-key breakout season, I'm going to be honest.
Right.
gets that interception on the big stage. Look, you're a rookie, but your arm can't cash that check, my dude. Like,
Right.
that's the lesson that Kenny Pickett always had to learn, and that was always what he was coming out. Is very similar, honestly, to Mac Jones. Is like, hey, you look a little more pro ready. You look a little bit like maybe you can handle this, but you clearly are lacking in physical tools, and you gotta know who you are. And that was
you gotta play within the framework, man. Like, that's it.
Don't write checks that your arm can't cash. Kenny Pickett got caught doing that in a big spot, and I think the entire nation, all collectively, in big unison, musical harmony, said, "Yike."
That was rough. But you know what? It was really close to being really rough watching Mike McDaniel not go for that field goal and potentially drop a game because of it. Like that game was going to produce a yikes no matter what happened in that one. Mike
we can
McDaniel
give them both a yike.
We
got yikes to go around.
Mike is going to enjoy it, though, taking that win home with him. He'll take that yike with a win.
Take that win and watch Bill Belichick fall to 3-4.
Oh, my goodness.
Not too much to complain about there. Interesting. AFC East. It's totally upside down from what it's been for the last 20 years. And you know what? We kind of love to see it. Parody is fun. Tomorrow on the show, you could talk to James Rapine and Tony Wiggins. Those guys are, I don't know what they'll be talking about, but they'll be in for it. You can also check out the prediction, the Keys to the Game show on Friday, where we all get in our keys to victory. We will see you all for that. For David Harrison, I am Luke Braun here in the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, free and available on all platforms.